She's falling. The CEO who controlled billions can't control gravity. Fire consumes the plane. Salt water rushes up to meet her scream. Beside her, a stranger grabs her hand, a man with calloused fingers and eyes that have already buried loved ones. 3 days later, starving and terrified Victoria Sterling will ask him the question that changes everything. If we can't go back, must I marry you to survive? But right now, she's just falling. Before we dive into their story, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss what happens next. And drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels across the world. Now, let's begin. I don't want to die next to a woman wearing a $15,000 suit. Those were the first words Marcus Thompson said to Victoria Sterling as the plane broke apart around them. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "We need to stay calm." Just that. Raw, honest, the kind of truth that only comes when death is 3 seconds away and pretending doesn't matter anymore. Victoria didn't answer. She couldn't. Her throat had closed around a scream that wouldn't come out. The Cessna lurched again, metal shrieking, and her fingers clawed into the leather seat that cost more than most people's cars. Outside the window, the Caribbean Sea spun like a washing machine full of knives. "Put your head down!" Marcus shouted over the engine's death rattle. "Between your knees, now!" She obeyed. Not because she trusted him, because her body moved before her brain could argue. In boardrooms, Victoria Sterling made decisions that shifted markets. Right now, she couldn't decide which way was up. The pilot was already dead. She'd seen his head snap forward when the engine exploded. Blood on the windshield? The co-pilot had bailed 2 minutes ago, parachute blooming white against the blue before he disappeared into the waves. Smart man, he'd left them to die. And he'd left... "We're going in," Marcus said. His voice was steady, too steady. Like he'd done this before, like crashing into the ocean at 200 miles per hour was just another Tuesday. "When we hit, you've got maybe 10 seconds before this thing sinks. You understand me? 10 seconds. "I understand." Her voice came out small. Victoria Sterling had never sounded small in her life. "Can you swim?" "Yes." "How well, Ta?" "I trained for triathlons in college." "Good. When we hit, don't inflate your life vest inside the plane. It'll trap you. Get out first, then inflate. You hearing me?" She nodded against her knees, tasting bile. "Say it back." "Get out first, then inflate." "Good girl." She would have fired any man who called her that in her office. Right now, she wanted to kiss him for it. The ocean rose up like a concrete wall. Marcus grabbed her hand. "Hold your breath." Impact. The world became violence, metal tearing, glass exploding. Water everywhere, cold and furious, flooding through the shattered windshield like it had been waiting for them. Victoria's seatbelt locked across her chest, crushing the air from her lungs. She clawed at the buckle. Stuck. Everything was stuck. The plane was sinking nose first, dragging them down into darkness that had no bottom. Marcus's knife came out of nowhere. He sliced through her seatbelt like it was paper, then his own. Grabbed her wrist. Pulled. She kicked against the current lungs, screaming, vision already going spotty at the edges. Her $15,000 suit jacket caught on something. Marcus yanked hard enough to dislocate her shoulder. The jacket tore free. They exploded through the surface together, gasping, choking on salt and jet fuel. The plane was already gone. Just bubbles now and debris and the infinite indifference of open water. "Inflate." Marcus coughed. "Your vest." Her fingers found the cord. Pulled. The vest ballooned around her chest, sudden and secure. Marcus did the same. For 10 seconds, they just floated there, breathing like it was a skill they'd forgotten and had to relearn. "Thank you," Victoria finally managed. "Don't thank me yet." Marcus was scanning the horizon, eyes squinted against the glare. "We're in the middle of nowhere. That pilot filed a flight plan for Grand Cayman, but we went down at least 40 miles off course. Maybe more. Search and rescue won't know where to look." "They'll find us." "Maybe." "They have to." Marcus looked at her then, really looked. His face was weathered mid-40s with the kind of lines that come from squinting into too many sunrises. His eyes were dark brown and tired in a way that had nothing to do with the crash. This was a man who'd been tired for years. "What's your name?" he asked. "Victoria Sterling." Something flickered across his face. Recognition, maybe. "The shipping CEO?" "Yes." "Figures. I survive a plane crash and end up floating in the ocean with a billionaire." He shook his head. I'm Marcus Thompson. What do you do, Marcus Thompson? I operate cranes, construction sites, nothing fancy. You knew what to do back there, in the plane. I was in the army, long time ago. Different life. He pointed past her shoulder. Look. She turned in the water. An island. Small, maybe a mile long, covered in scrub brush and palm trees. Rocky shore, no buildings, no boats, no people. But land. Solid, blessed land. Can we make it? She asked. It's about 2 miles. You said you did triathlons. 15 years ago. Then you better hope muscle memory's a real thing. Come on. He started swimming, strong, efficient strokes. Victoria followed. The vest kept her afloat, but swimming with it was like dragging an anchor. Her legs cramped after the first quarter mile. Her arms went numb after the first half. The sun beat down on her head until her scalp felt like it was cooking. Salt water filled her mouth every time she breathed. Her throat became sandpaper. Marcus kept looking back, checking on her. Never said anything. Just looked. And kept swimming. When her arms finally gave out, when she started slipping under, despite the vest, he swam back to her. I can't, she gasped. I can't do it. Yes, you can. No, leave me. Save yourself. Shut up. He grabbed her vest, started towing her like a boat. I didn't cut you out of that plane so you could quit a mile from shore. You're not dying today, Ms. Sterling. Neither am I. My daughter's waiting for me back home, and I promised her I'd bring her a seashell from the Caribbean. I don't break promises to my kid. Something about that, the certainty in his voice, the absolute refusal to let death win, gave Victoria enough strength to start kicking again. Weak kicks. Pathetic kicks. But kicks. They reached the shallows as the sun started to set. Marcus dragged her onto the beach. She collapsed face first into wet sand and didn't move. Couldn't move. Every muscle in her body had turned to lead. Get up, Marcus said. He wasn't even breathing hard. We need to get above the tide line. Come on. Give me a minute. Tide's coming in. You want to drown after all that? She forced herself up, crawled, then stood. Her legs shook but held. Together they stumbled 20 yards up the beach to where the sand turned dry and soft. Victoria collapsed again. This time Marcus led her. He sat down beside her, breathing, steady eyes already scanning the island like he was cataloging threats. We need fresh water, shelter, fire, in that order. We need rescue. That too. But rescue might take days, maybe weeks. We prepare like it's weeks. Weeks. The word felt like a death sentence. You got somewhere better to be. Victoria almost laughed. Yesterday morning, she'd been in a boardroom in Miami negotiating a merger worth $300 million. Tonight, she was lying on a beach in a torn Versace suit covered in jet fuel and vomit with a stranger who operated cranes for a living. I had a meeting, tomorrow morning, Tokyo. Call and reschedule. This time, she did laugh, bitter and sharp. I don't even know where my phone is. Bottom of the ocean, probably, along with everything else. Marcus stood up, wincing. Stay here. I'm going to check the tree line, see if there's anything we can use. Don't leave me alone. The vulnerability in her voice surprised them both. Victoria Sterling didn't do vulnerable. She did decisive, powerful, in control. But right now, with darkness coming fast and the ocean whispering behind them, she was just terrified. Marcus's expression softened. I'm not leaving. I'm reconnoitering. I'll be 20 feet away. You'll be able to see me the whole time. Okay? She nodded. Hated herself for needing the reassurance. Hated that she couldn't stand up and come with him. Hated her body for betraying her when her mind was still sharp. He walked to the tree line, moving carefully, testing each step. Came back 5 minutes later with an armful of palm fronds and a green coconut. Good news. Fresh water. He pulled out his knife, the same one that had cut her free, and started hacking at the coconut. Bad news. No sign of habitation. No boats. No buildings. No trash even. This island's either too small to matter or too remote to use. How do you know all this? I told you. Army. What did you do in the army? Survived. He got the coconut open, offered it to her. Drink slow, your stomach's going to be a mess from all the salt water. The coconut water was warm and slightly sweet. Victoria had never tasted anything better. She drank too fast, coughed, drank again. Marcus took it from her before she could finish. I said slow. I'm still thirsty. You'll throw up if you drink too much too fast, trust me. He took a small sip himself, then set the coconut aside. We'll find more tomorrow. Right now we need shelter before it gets dark. He built a shelter in 30 minutes. Just palm fronds lashed together with stripped bark leaned against a fallen log. Primitive. Barely functional. But it would keep the wind off them and the sand out of their faces. Victoria watched him work, too exhausted to help, marveling at how his hands moved. Confident. Certain. Like they'd done this 1,000 times. You're good at this, she said when he finished. I'm a father. You get good at building things. He crawled into the shelter, testing it. Nodded. It'll do for tonight. Tomorrow we upgrade. Victoria crawled in beside him. The space was tiny. Their shoulders touched. She could smell him sweat and ocean and something else. Something human and warm that her sterile penthouse had never contained. How old is your daughter? 7. Her name's Zoe. That's a beautiful name. Her mother picked it. His voice went quiet. Before she died. Victoria turned to look at him in the fading light. His face was silhouetted against the last pink streaks of sunset. I'm sorry. Cancer. 3 years ago. Zoe was 4. He was quiet for a moment. That's why I was on the plane. Flying back from a job in Jamaica. Good money. Enough to cover Zoe's school fees and keep her in art supplies. She likes to paint. Who's taking care of her now? My sister lives 2 streets over from us in Fort Lauderdale. She's good. Patient. Better with kids than I am, honestly. He looked out at the ocean. But she's going to be worried when I don't come home, when they tell her the plane went down. They'll find us. You keep saying that. Because it's true. We're not dying here, Marcus. We survived the crash. We made it to land. That means something. It means we're lucky. Doesn't mean we stay lucky. I don't believe in luck. I believe in preparation and persistence. He turned to look at her. You're a CEO. You make decisions from offices. You've never been in a situation where no amount of money or power can save you. This is that situation. Then teach me. Teach you what? How to survive. Marcus studied her face. Whatever he saw there made him nod slowly. Okay. First lesson. Everything you were before this moment doesn't matter anymore. Your money doesn't matter. Your title doesn't matter. Your $15,000 suit. $1,500. The $15,000 was the jacket, which is currently at the bottom of the ocean. Doesn't matter. Out here, you're not a CEO. You're just a person trying not to die, and the sooner you accept that, the better your chances are. Victoria felt something crack inside her chest. Not break, just crack. Enough to let a little bit of truth seep through. I don't know how to be just a person. Then you're about to learn. They sat in silence as full darkness fell. The ocean kept whispering. Somewhere in the jungle behind them, something howled. Victoria flinched. Marcus didn't. Get some sleep, he said. Tomorrow's going to be hard. I can't sleep. Try anyway. She tried, failed, lay there staring at palm fronds 6 inches from her face, listening to Marcus breathe beside her. Steady. Slow. He fell asleep in minutes. Victoria envied him for it. Her mind wouldn't stop. Kept replaying the crash, the water, the moment she thought she was going to die trapped in that sinking plane, the moment Marcus cut her free. She owed him her life. Victoria Sterling wasn't used to owing anyone anything. Somewhere around midnight, she finally slept and dreamed of drowning. She woke to Marcus shaking her shoulder. Storm's coming. Victoria blinked into the pre-dawn gray. The ocean had changed, no longer whispering. Now it was growling. White caps, angry waves. The wind had picked up, too, rattling the palm fronds above them. How bad? Bad enough. We need to move inland, find better shelter. This thing, he gestured at their pathetic lean-to, won't survive a real blow. They crawled out. Victoria's body screamed in protest. Every muscle was locked up from yesterday's swim. She moved like someone 3 times her age. Marcus noticed but didn't comment. Just handed her the coconut from last night. Finish this, then we move. She drank. He gathered up the few things. They had his knife, a piece of metal from the plane that had washed up on the beach, some rope made from twisted bark. That was it. That was everything they owned in the world. They moved inland as the sky darkened. The jungle was thick, oppressive, full of insects and thorns that tore at Victoria's already ruined clothes. Her blouse, silk custom-made, probably destroyed beyond repair, caught on a branch and ripped completely down the back. She didn't even care anymore. Marcus found a shallow cave about a quarter-mile from the beach. Not really a cave, more like an overhang in the rock, maybe 8 feet deep and 6 feet tall. But it was dry, protected. The wind couldn't reach them here today. "This'll do," he said. "Help me gather wood. Dry stuff only. We need a fire before the rain hits." They gathered wood. Victoria had no idea what dry wood looked like, so she just copied Marcus. Grabbed what he grabbed. Avoided what he avoided. She felt useless, incompetent. Every decision she'd made in the last 20 years involved spreadsheets and lawyers and leverage. Out here, she couldn't even identify a stick. The first drops fell as Marcus started working on the fire. He used his knife and the piece of metal, striking them together to create sparks. It looked easy when he did it. Victoria knew it wasn't. Knew that behind that casual competence was probably hundreds of hours of practice, maybe thousands. The sparks caught on some dried moss he'd shredded. He cupped his hands around it, breathing gently, coaxing the ember to life. A thin line of smoke rose up, then a small flame. He fed it carefully, adding tiny twigs first, then slightly larger ones, building it up piece by piece until they had a real fire crackling in front of the mite. The rain hit hard. A tropical storm, violent and sudden. It hammered the jungle and turned the air to water. But inside the cave behind the fire, they were almost dry. Almost warm. "Not bad for day 2, Marcus said. "Is that what this is, day 2? We crashed yesterday around 5 p.m. It's now about 8 a.m., so yeah. Day 2. Victoria did the math. That meant they'd been stranded for 15 hours. It felt like 15 years. "How long do you think we'll be here?" "No idea. Depends on how good the search is. Depends on weather. Depends on a lot of things we can't control." "I hate things I can't control." "Get used to it." He was feeding the fire, keeping it steady. "Out here, you control almost nothing. Just your attitude and your effort. That's it." "That's not enough." "It's all we've got." Victoria watched the rain, watched the fire, watched Marcus's hands as they worked, scarred and capable and completely foreign to her world. "Why did you help me in the plane? You could have saved yourself. Could have gotten out faster alone." He didn't answer right away, just kept tending the fire. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. "My wife died because I wasn't there. I was on a job site across town when she collapsed. By the time I got to the hospital, she was already gone. I didn't get to say goodbye, didn't get to hold her hand. I wasn't there when she needed me most." He looked up at Victoria. "I'm not a hero. I'm just a man who's tired of being too late." Something shifted in Victoria's chest. That crack from last night widened, let in more truth, more feeling, more of the human parts she'd spent 20 years walling off to build her empire. "I'm sorry about your wife." "Me too." "What was her name?" Elena." "Tell me about her." Marcus smiled, sad but genuine. "She laughed at everything. Bad jokes, good jokes. Didn't matter. She found joy in things I couldn't even see. Used to say I was too serious, too focused on problems. She'd make me dance in the kitchen while dinner was cooking. Zoe learned that from her. The dancing." He poked at the fire. "She made the world lighter just by being in it." "She sounds wonderful." "She was." He was quiet again. Then, "What about you? You got someone waiting back home, husband, partner?" "No." "Ever been married?" "No, why not?" Victoria almost said, "too busy." Almost said, "never found the right person." But those were lies. Corporate lies. Comfortable lies. And this cave, this fire, this moment, it demanded truth. "Because I'm terrified of it." Marcus looked at her. "Of marriage, of needing someone, of depending on someone, of giving them the power to hurt me." She pulled her knees up to her chest. "I watched my parents destroy each other, watched them use love as a weapon. By the time I was 10, I swore I'd never let anyone close enough to do that to me. That's lonely. That's safe. Same thing sometimes." He was right. She hated that he was right. "I built a company worth $3 billion. I employ 4,000 people across 6 continents. I make decisions that affect markets. I'm not lonely, I'm successful. You can be both. Victoria wanted to argue, wanted to defend her choices, but the words wouldn't come. Because sitting here in a cave on a deserted island, $3 billion away from everything she'd built, she felt more connected to this stranger than she'd felt to anyone in 20 years. And that terrified her more than the crash, more than the storm, more than the possibility of dying here. I don't know how to do this, she said quietly. Do what? Be vulnerable, be weak, be helpless. She gestured at herself. This isn't me. Maybe it is. You just never let it show before. I can't afford to let it show. In my world, weakness gets you killed. This isn't your world anymore. Out here pretending you're not weak when you are, that's what gets you killed. Marcus leaned forward. You want to survive this, stop lying to yourself. Stop acting like you know what you're doing when you don't. Ask questions. Learn. Accept help. And for God's sake, stop thinking you have to be strong every single second. I don't know how to be anything else. Then learn that too. The fire crackled. The rain kept falling. Victoria felt tears building behind her eyes and hated herself for it. She didn't cry. Hadn't cried in 15 years, not at her mother's funeral. Not when her first company went bankrupt. Not when the board tried to force her out last year. She'd learned to turn pain into fuel. Weakness into strategy. Tears into steel. But the steel was breaking now, and she didn't know how to stop it. Hey, Marcus's voice was soft. It's okay. What's okay? Crying. Being scared. All of it. He shifted closer, not touching, just near. You almost died yesterday. You're stranded on an island with no idea when rescue's coming. Your whole life just got ripped away. You're allowed to fall apart. I don't fall apart. Everyone does eventually. You're just overdue. And that did it. That one sentence. That simple, stupid truth. Victoria broke. 20 years of control shattered like glass. She cried. Ugly, gasping sobs that hurt her chest and made her nose run and stripped away every last piece of the armor she'd spent her adult life building. She cried for the crash, for the terror, for the loneliness of her penthouse and the emptiness of her life. For everything she'd sacrificed to build an empire that couldn't save her here. Marcus didn't say anything, didn't try to fix it, just sat there beside her steady and solid, letting her break without judgment. When she finally stopped, when the sobs turned to hiccups and then to shaky breathing, he handed her a piece of cloth, part of his shirt that he'd torn off. Blow your nose. She did. Felt ridiculous. Felt lighter. Thank you. For what? Not making me feel pathetic. You're not pathetic, you're human. He went back to tending the fire. My wife used to say that crying was just emotion leaving the body, like sweat or blood. You keep it in too long, it poisons you. Better to let it out. Your wife was wise. She was. He smiled at the memory. She'd have liked you, I think. Why? Because you're fighting so hard to survive. Elena always respected people who fought. He looked at Victoria. You're stronger than you think you are. You just measure strength wrong. What do you mean? You think strength is never breaking, never showing weakness, never needing help? But that's not strength. That's just fear dressed up pretty. He added another stick to the fire. Real strength is breaking and then getting back up, asking for help when you need it, admitting you don't have all the answers. That takes guts. Victoria sat with that, let it sink in. Her whole life she'd been told to be tough, be hard, be untouchable. And it had worked. She'd built an empire on that foundation. But empires were cold, and she was tired of being cold. Will you teach me, she asked, teach you what? Everything? How to survive, how to build things, how to find food and water, how to be someone other than who I was. Marcus studied her face. That last one might be the hardest. I know. Why do you want to change? Because who I was couldn't cut herself out of a sinking airplane, couldn't swim 2 miles to shore, couldn't build a fire or find water or survive a single day without help. She met his eyes. I spent 20 years becoming powerful. Maybe it's time I learned how to be capable. Those aren't the same thing. Not even close. Marcus nodded slowly. Okay, I'll teach you, but it won't be easy. You're going to fail a lot. Get frustrated. Want to quit. I don't quit. Good. Because out here, quitting means dying. The storm raged for 2 days. They stayed in the cave, keeping the fire going, rationing the coconuts Marcus had gathered before the rain hit. Victoria learned how to maintain a fire, learned the difference between hardwood and softwood, learned that smoke could preserve food and signal rescuers and keep insects away if you used it right. She failed at everything at first, let the fire go out twice, cut herself trying to open a coconut, spooked when she saw a snake and nearly fell off the cliff. But Marcus never got impatient, never made her feel stupid, just showed her again, explained it differently, let her make mistakes until they became lessons instead of failures. On the third day, the storm broke. They emerged from the cave into a world that had been washed clean. The sun was sharp, the jungle was green, the ocean was calm again, sparkling like nothing bad had ever happened. "We need protein," Marcus said. "I'll try to catch some fish. You work on improving our shelter, make it bigger, more weatherproof. Think you can handle that?" Victoria looked at the palm fronds and bark rope. "Probably not." "Try anyway." He headed toward the beach with a spear he'd made from a straight branch and his knife. Victoria watched him go, then turned to the shelter. It was pathetic, barely functional. A strong wind could collapse it. She started gathering materials, more palm fronds, stronger branches, better rope. Her hands blistered within an hour. She didn't stop, worked through the pain trying to remember everything Marcus had shown her, the way to lash branches together, the angle to lean the fronds, the importance of drainage so rain wouldn't pool inside. It took her 6 hours to build something that would have taken Marcus 1. When he came back with 3 fish, he stopped and stared. "You did that?" Victoria nodded, too tired to speak. "It's not perfect, but it's solid. Good work." Those 2 words, good work, hit her harder than any board approval or stock price surge ever had. She'd built something with her hands, something real, something that would keep them alive. Marcus showed her how to gut the fish, how to cook them over the fire, how to save the bones for hooks and the skin for cordage. They ate in silence, too hungry for conversation. The fish was bland, undercooked, full of tiny bones. Victoria had never tasted anything better. That night, lying in the improved shelter with a full stomach and aching muscles, Victoria asked the question that had been building for 3 days. "If we can't go back, must I marry you to survive?" Marcus turned to look at her. "What?" "You said we might be here for weeks, maybe longer, and I don't know how to survive alone, so logically, if rescue never comes, if we're here permanently, wouldn't it make sense to—" She trailed off, hearing how insane it sounded out loud. "You want to marry me?" "I want to survive. Marriage would be a practical arrangement." Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. "Lady, you really don't know how relationships work, do you?" "I know how business partnerships work. Same concept. Division of labor. Shared resources. Mutual benefit. That's not marriage, that's a merger." "What's the difference?" He sat up, firelight making shadows on his face. "The difference is love. Trust. Choosing someone not because it's practical, but because you can't imagine your life without them. Marriage isn't about survival, it's about living. But if survival is all we have, then we survive as partners, as friends, maybe as family eventually, but not as a business arrangement, not as some cold calculation." He leaned forward. "You want the truth. If we're stuck here permanently, if rescue never comes, you don't need to marry me to survive. You just need to keep doing what you're doing. Keep learning. Keep trying. Keep fighting. That's enough. But you have skills I don't have. Knowledge I need. So I'll teach you. We'll be a team. But teams don't require marriage licenses." Victoria felt something crack again. Deeper this time. "I don't know how to be a team. I only know how to be a boss or an employee. How to give orders or take them. I don't know the middle ground." "The middle ground is where most people live." "I'm not most people." "No." Marcus agreed. "You're not, but maybe out here you could be." She wanted to argue, wanted to explain why her way worked, why control was necessary, why vulnerability was weakness. But the words wouldn't come, because her way hadn't worked. Her control hadn't saved her from the crash. Her walls hadn't protected her from terror. And maybe, just maybe, Marcus was right. Maybe it was time to learn a different way to be human. "Teach me," she said again. "I'm trying. Not just survival, Teach me how to be part of a team, how to trust someone, how to... She stopped, not sure how to finish. How to be vulnerable. Yes, Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then, that's not something I can teach. That's something you have to choose, every day, every moment. You have to choose to lower the walls instead of building them higher. And it's terrifying, I know, I've been there. After Elena died, I put up walls so thick Zoe couldn't reach me for 6 months. I was so afraid of feeling that pain again that I stopped feeling anything. Stopped being her father and just became this robot who made sure she had food and clean clothes and got Anna to school on time. He looked at the fire. My sister finally slapped me. Literally slapped me across the face. Told me I was failing Zoe by being afraid to love her fully. Afraid she might die too and leave me alone again. What did you do? I cried. Then I went home and held my daughter and told her I loved her. And I kept doing that every day until it stopped feeling terrifying and started feeling natural again. He turned to Victoria. The walls will protect you, but they'll also kill you. Slowly. From the inside out. Until you're alive but not living. Victoria understood exactly what he meant. Had felt it for years without naming it. The emptiness behind her success. The cold space where warmth should be. I don't know if I can do it. Not asking you to do it all at once, just asking you to try. Start small. Tell me one true thing about yourself, something you don't tell anyone. Something that scares you to say out loud. She almost refused, almost made a joke or changed the subject or went to sleep. But something in his eyes, that steadiness, that patience, that complete lack of judgment made her brave enough to try. I'm 41 years old, she said quietly. And I've never been loved. Not really, not the way you loved your wife, not the way you love your daughter. I've been admired, feared, respected, used but never loved. And I'm terrified I never will be because I don't know how to let someone close enough to do it. The words hung in the air between them. Naked, raw, true. Marcus didn't flinch. Thank you for telling me that. That's it. No advice, no wisdom. What do you want me to say? I don't know, something that makes it hurt less. Can't do that. Pain is pain, you feel it or you don't, but I will tell you this. He held her gaze. You're wrong about one thing. You said you've never been loved. But your employees, the ones you mentioned. 4,000 people across 6 continents, some of them love you. Maybe not romantically, but they trust you. Follow you, that's a kind of love. That's not the same. No, but it's not nothing either. And maybe if you learned to let people closer in your real life the way you do in your work life, you'd find what you're looking for. How do I do that? Start by being honest, like you just were. And when someone tries to get close, don't run, don't hide, don't build walls, just stay. And see what happens. Victoria nodded, felt lighter. Still scared, but less alone. Can I tell you something else? Sure. I'm glad you were on that plane. I know that's a terrible thing to say. You almost died, but if I had to crash, I'm glad it was with you. Marcus smiled. I'm glad too. Even if you did ruin my vacation. You were on vacation. 3 days in Jamaica, first time off in 2 years. Figured I'd earned it. And I ruined it by making you crash on a deserted island. Pretty much. They both laughed. And in that moment, in that small shelter on a deserted island thousands of miles from anywhere, Victoria Sterling felt something she hadn't felt in 20 years. She felt like she belonged. The next morning, Victoria woke before Marcus. That alone was a victory. She'd spent 20 years waking at 5 a.m. to beat the markets, but exhaustion had owned her since the crash. Today, though, her body remembered its old rhythms. She crawled out of the shelter, carefully trying not to wake him, and stood looking at the ocean as pink light spread across the water. Her hands were blistered and raw. Her designer pants were shredded at the knees. Her hair, which cost $200 every 6 weeks to maintain, hung in salt-stiffened tangles behest. She looked like a disaster. She felt more alive than she had in years. You're up early. She turned. Marcus was sitting up in the shelter watching her. Couldn't sleep. Thinking about rescue? Thinking about what happens if it doesn't come. She walked back toward him. Yesterday you said I was measuring strength wrong. What did you mean by that? He climbed out, stretched, winced at some injury he hadn't mentioned. In your world, strength means control, power, making things happen through force of will. Out here, that doesn't work. You can't control the weather, can't force fish to bite, can't make rescue planes appear just because you want them to. He started rebuilding the fire from last night's coals. Real strength out here is adaptation, flexibility, accepting what you can't change and working with what you have. That sounds like surrender. Does it? He got the fire going efficient and quick. When I was in Afghanistan, we lost 3 men because our CO refused to adapt. Stuck to the plan even when the plan was clearly wrong. Thought changing course meant admitting weakness. Those 3 men died because he couldn't bend. Victoria sat down across from him. What would you have done to change the plan? Saved the men. He looked at her. That's the difference. Rigid things break under pressure. Flexible things survive. I've spent my whole career being rigid. It built my company. It did, but it also brought you here, didn't it? That flight was a business trip. You were flying to close a deal, being rigid, being in control, and the universe said no. She wanted to argue, wanted to defend her choices, but he was right. She'd taken that flight instead of video conferencing because she needed to be there in person, needed to show dominance, control the room, force the outcome she wanted. And it had nearly killed her. So, what do I do? Start by asking better questions. Not how do I control this situation, but how do I work with this situation? Not how do I make this happen, but what's trying to happen here? You follow? Not really. Okay, example. You want fresh water, right? Obviously. Rigid approach is to search every inch of this island until you find a stream. Might take days, might not exist. Flexible approach is to ask where water naturally collects. Low points, rock formations, vegetation clusters. Let the island show you where the water is instead of forcing it to give up its secrets. Victoria thought about that. About all the times she'd forced outcomes instead of listening for what wanted to happen naturally. About deals she'd pushed through that ultimately failed. Employees she'd dominated who eventually quit. Relationships she'd tried to control that withered and died. I'm not good at listening. I noticed. That's not a compliment. Wasn't meant to be. But he was smiling. Come on, let's find water. I'll show you what I mean. They walked inland, Marcus moving slow and deliberate, showing her what to look for. Places where the ground dipped, where insects swarmed, where the vegetation changed from scrub brush to something greener and lusher. He didn't tell her the answers, just pointed things out and waited for her to make connections. It took her an hour to understand what he was doing. He was teaching her to see instead of look, to notice patterns instead of individual things, to let the environment speak instead of interrogating it. There, she pointed at a cluster of ferns growing thick around a rock outcropping. Water. Why do you think that? Ferns need moisture, and they're all growing in the same direction toward something. Plus the rock is darker there, stained, like water runs down it when it rains. Good, let's check. They pushed through the ferns. Behind them, hidden in a natural depression in the rock, was a pool about 3 feet across and a foot deep. Clear water. Fresh water. Fed by a tiny spring that bubbled up from some underground source. We just found our water supply, Marcus said. Now we need to purify it. What do you think we should use? Fire, boil it. That works. What else? Victoria thought. Filter it through sand or cloth or something. Good. Both methods together are even better. Boil kills bacteria. Filtering removes particles and some chemicals. He knelt by the pool, cupped his hands, took a small sip. Spit it out. Tastes mineral heavy but not sulfurous. Probably safe even without purifying, but we'll do it anyway. No point taking chances. They spent the rest of the morning building a water collection system. Marcus showed her how to dig a channel from the pool to a lower spot where they could place their coconut shells to catch the overflow. How to line the channel with leaves so the water stayed clean. How to build a small fire pit near their collection point so they could boil water without hauling it all the way back to camp. Victoria's hands, already blistered, tore open. Blood mixed with dirt. Every muscle screamed, but she kept working, kept learning. And when they finished, when they had fresh water flowing into their collection shells, she felt something she'd never felt closing a business deal. Pride. Real pride. Not in manipulating numbers or outmaneuvering competitors, but in making something useful with her own hands. You're smiling, Marcus observed. Am I? First time since the crash? She touched her face, her cheeks hurt from it. I built something that matters. You built plenty of things that matter. Your company employs thousands of people. That's different. I didn't build that with my hands. I built it with money and leverage and other people's labor. This, she gestured at the water system. I made this. Me, it's real. Both kinds of building are real. But only one kind makes me feel like this. Marcus studied her. You really never did physical work before, ever? I grew up wealthy, had housekeepers, gardeners, people who fix things. Then I went to business school and started companies where other people did the physical work while I handled strategy. She looked at her torn, bloody hands. I've never been good at anything I couldn't do from behind a desk. You're good at this. I'm terrible at this. Everything takes me 6 times longer than it takes you. I make mistakes constantly. You're learning. That's different than being terrible. And you don't quit. That counts for a lot. Victoria sat down by the water collection point, suddenly exhausted. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why aren't you angry? About what? About being stuck here? About missing your daughter's life? About potentially dying on this island? I'd be furious, but you're just calm. Marcus was quiet for a while. I was angry. First night after you fell asleep, I sat there imagining all the ways I could die before seeing Zoe again. Made myself sick with it, but then I realized something. Anger doesn't help. Doesn't change the situation. Just makes it harder to think clearly, so I let it go. How do you just let anger go? Practice and perspective. After Elena died, I was angry at everything. Angry at God, at cancer, at the universe, at her for leaving me alone with a 4-year-old. That anger nearly destroyed me. Nearly destroyed Zoe. My sister made me see a therapist. Took 2 years, but I learned that anger is just fear in a different costume. Once I dealt with the fear, the anger went away. What were you afraid of? Being alone, failing Zoe, living the rest of my life half dead inside. He picked up a stone, turned it over in his hands. Same things everyone's afraid of when they lose someone. You just don't always recognize it as fear. Victoria pulled her knees up to her chest. I've been angry my whole life. At my parents for their toxic marriage, at every man who underestimated me in business, at the world for making me fight so hard for everything. I thought that anger made me strong. Did it? I don't know anymore. Maybe it just made me tired. Probably both. He tossed the stone into the pool. Anger can fuel you for a while, but eventually it burns you out. Better to find something else to run on. Like what? Purpose, love, hope, take your pick. I don't have any of those things. You have purpose. You want to survive. That's purpose enough for now. They sat in silence. The sun climbed higher. The jungle buzzed with invisible life. Victoria's stomach growled. We should eat, Marcus said. Come on, I'll teach you to catch crabs. They headed back toward the beach. On the way, Marcus stopped, suddenly held up his hand. Don't move. Victoria froze. What? Snake, 3 feet to your left. She looked, saw nothing. Then movement. A thick brown body coiled around a branch at eye level less than a yard away. Her heart tried to climb out of her throat. Back up slowly, Marcus said. Don't make any sudden moves. She backed up, 1 step, 2. The snake didn't move, didn't even seem to notice them. It's not venomous, Marcus said when they were clear, but it could still bite, and out here any wound can get infected. Victoria's legs were shaking. I almost walked right into it. That's why you have to pay attention. Every second, the island won't forgive carelessness. How did you see it? I was looking right at it and didn't notice until you pointed it out. Practice and fear. After my first deployment, I learned that everything wants to kill you if you're not careful. Taught myself to see threats before they become problems. Is that what you think about all the time and everything that could kill us? Pretty much. Water, food, shelter, enigning, injury, infection, weather, wildlife. That's the checklist. Cover those bases, we survive. Miss one, we die. Victoria felt the weight of that settle on her shoulders. That's exhausting. It is, but it's also simple. No politics, no manipulation, no games. Just clear priorities and direct action. They reached the beach. Marcus showed her how to hunt for crabs in the shallow pools between rocks. You had to move fast but smooth. Predictable movements scared them. Jerky movements made them hide. You had to think like a predator, patient and precise. Victoria caught exactly 0 crabs in the first hour. Marcus caught 8. "I'm terrible at this too," she said, frustrated. "You're trying too hard. Stop thinking about it. Just react." "I don't know how to stop thinking." "That's your whole problem right there." But he said it kindly. "Your brain is your best tool in your world. Out here, it's often your worst enemy. Overthinking makes you slow, hesitant. The crabs sense that and they bolt." "So, what do I do?" "Trust your body. Let instinct take over." He positioned her by a pool. "Don't look at the crab. Look at the space around it. See the whole picture. Now, when it moves, you move. Don't think, just do." She tried, failed, tried again, failed again. On the 15th attempt, her hand shot out without thought and came up holding a struggling crab. "I got one." "You did. Now don't let it pinch you." Too late. The crab clamped onto her thumb. Pain exploded sharp and immediate. She yelped, shook her hand, and the crab flew off into the ocean. Marcus was laughing. Actually, laughing. "That's lesson 2. Always secure the claws first. You could have mentioned that earlier. More fun watching you learn the hard way." She looked at her thumb. It was bleeding, but not badly, just a flesh wound. "You're enjoying this." "Little bit. You spend your whole life controlling everything. Nice to see something control you for a change." "That's mean." "That's honest. You want me to blow smoke or tell you the truth?" "Truth." "Then here it is. You're used to everything working the first time because you have money and power and resources to make it work. Out here, you have none of that. Just you and your hands and your brain. And most of the time, you're going to fail. That's not a character flaw, that's life. The question is whether you can fail and keep trying or whether you give up." Victoria looked at her bleeding thumb, at the ocean where her crab had escaped, at Marcus standing there with his 8 crabs and his easy confidence. She could quit, could say this was too hard, could wait for him to catch food while she did easier tasks. That would be the smart play, the efficient play. Division of labor based on skill sets, but that would also be the old Victoria, the one who delegated physical work, the one who stayed in her comfort zone. The new Victoria, the one being born on this island, needed to learn how to catch her own damn crabs. "Show me again," she said. They spent the rest of the afternoon hunting crabs. By sunset, Victoria had caught 3, Marcus had caught 27. But those 3 were hers, earned with patience and blood and failure and persistence. When they cooked them over the fire that night, hers tasted better than any meal she'd ever eaten in any restaurant. "You did good today," Marcus said, cracking open a crab leg. "I did terrible. You caught 10 times more than me." "I've been doing this for 20 years. You've been doing it for 6 hours. For 6 hours, you did great." "When did you learn the army?" "Before that. My dad used to take me fishing every weekend when I was a kid. Taught me to hunt crabs, catch fish, read weather, start fires with nothing. Said every man should know how to feed himself without a grocery store." He smiled at the memory. "Thought he was crazy back then. Now I'm grateful." "Is he still alive?" "No, heart attack 10 years ago, but he's the one who taught me that being capable matters more than being successful. Success can disappear overnight. Capability stays with you forever." Victoria thought about her own father. "My dad taught me how to negotiate, how to read people, how to find leverage and use it. That's all. Those are useful skills." "Not here. Here I'm useless without you." "You're learning. That's not useless. And honestly, your negotiation skills might come in handy if we ever encounter anyone else." "You think we will?" "No idea. This island's pretty remote. But stranger things have happened." They ate in comfortable silence. The fire crackled. The ocean whispered. Stars appeared overhead more than Victoria had ever seen from her penthouse. The Milky Way stretched across the sky like someone had spilled sugar. "I never looked at stars in the city," she said. "Light pollution, plus you were probably too busy." "I was always too busy. Meetings, deals, strategy sessions. When I got home, I'd work until midnight, sleep 5 hours, and start again. Weekends were just weekdays without assistance. That's not living, that's existing. It made me $3 billion. And it made you miserable. She wanted to deny it, but lying took energy she didn't have. Yes. So why keep doing it? Because I didn't know any other way to be. Success was the only thing I knew how to do, the only thing I was good at. If I stopped, who was I? That's what you're finding out now. Victoria looked at him across the fire. His face was weathered and kind, his hands scarred and capable. He'd saved her life, taught her to survive, never judged her for being weak or lost or terrified. She realized, the best person she'd ever known. And she'd met presidents and celebrities and titans of industry. None of them came close. "Can I ask you something personal?" she said. "You've been asking me personal things all day." "This is more personal." "Go ahead." "Do you ever regret it, getting married, having a child, building a life that could be destroyed by loss?" Marcus set down his crab. "You're asking if loving people is worth the pain of losing them." "Yeah. Every single day I wake up and miss Elena so much it physically hurts. Some mornings I can barely get out of bed. Zoe will do something, laugh a certain way, or tilt her head, and I see her mother and it destroys me all over again." He stared into the fire. "But I wouldn't trade a single second of the time I had with Elena, not to avoid the pain, not for anything. Because loving her, being loved by her, having Zoe together, that was the point. That was life. Everything else was just filler. Even though it ended, everything ends. That doesn't make it less real while it's happening." He looked at her. "You're so afraid of pain that you've avoided everything that makes life worth living. That's not protection. That's just a slower way to die." His words hit like a physical blow. Because he was right. She'd spent 41 years protecting herself from hurt by refusing to feel anything too deeply. And what had it gotten her? Money, success, a company, and a life so empty she'd almost been relieved when the plane crashed, because at least falling felt like something real. "I don't want to be afraid anymore," she said quietly. "Then stop choosing fear." It's not that simple. It absolutely is. Every moment you choose, fear or trust, walls or vulnerability, control or connection. You think it's complicated because you want an excuse not to change, but it's actually dead simple. You just have to be brave enough to do it. "I don't know how to be brave." Sure you do. You survived a plane crash, swam 2 miles to shore, learned to make fire and find water and catch crabs, even though you'd never done any of it before. That's brave. That's different. That's physical courage. I'm talking about emotional courage. Same thing. Courage is courage. You either choose it or you don't. Victoria pulled her knees up, hugging herself. What if I try and fail? What if I let someone in and they destroy me? Then you survive that too. Same way you're surviving this. He leaned forward. You want to know what I've learned? The only real failure is not trying. Because at least if you try and it doesn't work out, you have a story, you have experience, you have growth. But if you never try, you just have regret. And regret is the heaviest thing you can carry. She sat with that, let it sink down into places she usually kept locked. I'm tired of being alone. Then stop choosing it. What if no one wants me, the real me, not the CEO, not the persona? What if I'm fundamentally unlovable? You're not. How do you know? Because there's no such thing as fundamentally unlovable. That's just a story you tell yourself to justify staying safe. Everyone is capable of being loved. They just have to let themselves be known first. I don't know how to be known. Start by being honest, like you're being right now. This conversation, this vulnerability, this is being known. And I haven't run away yet, have I? Victoria felt tears building again. You're stuck on an island with me. You can't run away. Marcus smiled. Fair point, but I also don't want to. You're prickly and controlling and terrible at catching crabs, but you're also smart and determined and willing to learn. And underneath all that armor, you're just scared. I understand scared. I've been scared my whole life. After my dad died, after Elena got sick, every time Zoe gets a cold, I'm terrified it's something worse. Fear doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. What if I'm too broken to fix? Nobody's too broken. Just too afraid to try. She looked at him across the fire. This man who'd lost everything and still had the courage to keep loving his daughter fully. Who faced every day on this island with patience and grace even though he had every reason to be angry? Who saw her at her worst and still treated her with kindness? I want to be braver, she said. Then start now. Tell me one thing you've never told anyone. Something true and scary. Victoria took a breath. Let it out. I think I've wasted my entire life. I spent 41 years building something that doesn't matter. Something that won't even remember me when I'm gone. And I'm terrified that I'll never have time to fix it. That I'll die here having never really lived. The words hung in the air, raw and true and terrifying. Marcus didn't flinch. You're not dead yet. And as long as you're breathing, you can change. Start now. How? By choosing different. Tomorrow when you wake up, ask yourself what would make you feel alive. Then do that thing, even if it's scary. Especially if it's scary. What if I don't know what makes me feel alive? Then try things until you figure it out. You've got time. We're not going anywhere. Victoria laughed, bitter but real. That's one way to look at it. It's the only way that keeps you sane. We can rage about being stuck here, or we can use this time to become different people. Better people. That's up to us. She lay down by the fire, exhausted and full and more hopeful than she'd been in years. Marcus lay down too close enough that she could feel his warmth. For the first time since the crash, she didn't feel alone. Didn't feel lost. She felt like maybe, just maybe, this island wasn't a prison. It was a chance to strip away everything false and discover what was real underneath. A chance to stop being the person fear had made her and start becoming the person courage could create. Marcus. Yeah. Thank you. For what? For not giving up on me even when I'm difficult. You're not difficult. You're just scared. And scared people need patience, not judgment. She closed her eyes. Let sleep come. And for the first time in 20 years, she dreamed of something other than drowning. She dreamed of flying. 2 weeks passed. Victoria stopped counting days and started measuring time differently. Before the fire went out, after she learned to fish. The morning Marcus taught her to weave baskets. The afternoon she finally opened a coconut without help. Time became circular instead of linear, marked by small victories instead of calendar dates. Her hands stopped bleeding. Calluses formed thick and yellow across her palms. Her body changed too, muscles appearing in places she'd forgotten existed. Her arms grew strong from hauling water. Her legs hardened from climbing rocks. The softness that came from boardroom living burned away under the Caribbean sun, leaving something leaner and tougher behind. But the physical changes were nothing compared to what was happening inside. Marcus found her crying one morning by the water collection point. Not the desperate sobs from her first breakdown. These were quieter, steadier. The kind of tears that came from finally feeling things she'd buried for decades. What's wrong? He asked, sitting down beside her. Nothing's wrong. That's the problem. I don't follow. I'm happy. She said it like a confession, like admitting to a crime. For the first time in my adult life, I'm actually happy. And it's terrifying because I'm stranded on a deserted island with no guarantee of rescue, and I should be miserable, but I'm not. I wake up every morning excited to learn something new, to try again, to fail better. And I don't understand how that's possible. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Maybe you were already stranded, just in a different way, and this island set you free. That doesn't make sense. Doesn't it? You said yourself your life was empty, that you'd built something that didn't matter. Maybe you needed everything stripped away so you could figure out what actually does matter. And what matters? You tell me, what made you cry just now? Victoria wiped her eyes. I was filling the water shells and I realized I knew how. Not because you told me, because my body remembered. My hands knew what to do without my brain having to control everything. And it felt like magic. Like I'd finally learned to trust something other than my mind. That's worth crying about. Is it? Absolutely. Trusting yourself is the hardest thing in the world, especially for people like us who've been hurt. Were you hurt before Elena? Marcus picked up a stone, rolled it between his fingers. My mom left when I was 8. Just disappeared one day. Dad came home from work and found a note on the kitchen table. She'd met someone else, didn't want to be a mother anymore. We never heard from her again. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago, but it taught me that people leave, even people who promise to stay. So when I met Elena, when I started falling for her, I fought it hard. Didn't want to risk it. Didn't want to build something that could be destroyed. What changed? She did. She saw through all my walls and loved me anyway. Told me that being afraid of loss was just another way of losing. That if I spent my whole life protecting myself from pain, I'd miss out on everything good too. He tossed the stone into the pool. She was right. We only had 12 years together, but they were the best 12 years of my life. And I'd rather have those 12 years in this pain than a lifetime of safety and emptiness. Victoria understood what he meant. Had lived the safety and emptiness version. Do you think you'll ever love someone again? I don't know. Some days I think yes. Other days I can't imagine it. Elena was my person, the one who made everything make sense. Finding that twice feels impossible. But you'd try if you met someone, maybe, if she was patient enough to deal with a widowed single father who's terrible at feelings and spends half his time building things with his daughter. He looked at Victoria. Why are you asking? Because I'm trying to understand how people do it, how they risk everything knowing it might end badly. They don't think about the ending. They think about the middle, the daily stuff. Making coffee together, arguing about what to watch on TV, holding hands in the grocery store. That's what you're signing up for, not forever, just today. And then tomorrow you choose again. That sounds exhausting. It is, it's also the only thing worth doing. They sat together as the sun climbed higher. Victoria felt something shifting inside her, not breaking. Opening, like a door she'd kept locked for 40 years was finally swinging free. Marcus? Yeah. I think I'm starting to understand what you meant, about choosing courage over fear. Good. What changed? I realized that being scared of getting hurt is just another way of hurting myself. I've spent my whole life alone trying to avoid loneliness. That's insane. Most people are insane that way, they just hide it better. I don't want to hide anymore. Then don't. She turned to look at him, really look, at the lines around his eyes, the gray threading through his dark hair, the scars on his hands from decades of hard work. He wasn't handsome in the traditional sense, too rough, too worn. But he was real, tied to the kind of real that came from surviving things and staying kind anyway. Can I tell you something? She said. Always. I think I'm falling for you. The words hung in the air between them, naked and terrifying and true. Marcus didn't move, didn't speak, just looked at her with those steady brown eyes that had seen too much and still chose gentleness. Victoria, you don't have to say anything. I know this is complicated. You're still grieving your wife. We're stranded on an island. This probably isn't even real. It's probably just trauma bonding or survival instinct or... Stop. She stopped. It's not trauma bonding, and it's real. I feel it too. He ran his hand through his hair, clearly struggling. But I don't know what to do with it. I haven't felt this way about anyone since Elena, and feeling it now here like this, it feels wrong, like I'm betraying her. You're not betraying her. She's gone. I know that. My head knows that. But my heart... He pressed his fist against his chest. My heart still belongs to her, and I don't know if there's room for anyone else. Victoria felt the rejection like a physical blow, but underneath it was something else. Understanding. Respect. Because this was what real love looked like, even after death, even after 3 years. Elena had been so deeply loved that Marcus couldn't imagine replacing her. I'm sorry, she said. I shouldn't have said anything. No, I'm glad you did. I'm glad you're brave enough to be honest. That takes guts. Doesn't feel like guts. Feels like stupidity. It's not. It's growth. The old you would never have risked rejection like that. She would have kept it locked down, hidden. Sigh. He reached out, almost touched her hand, then pulled back. I can't give you what you want. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I can give you honesty. And the honest truth is that you're the first person since Elena who's made me feel something other than grief. And that terrifies me. Why? Because what if I let myself fall for you, and then we get rescued? We go back to our separate lives. You return to your company. I go back to Zoe, and this thing between us, whatever it is, dies because it was only real here. Only real in survival mode. Or what if it's real everywhere? What if this island just stripped away all the bullshit so we could finally see clearly? I don't know. Me neither, but I want to find out. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Something passed between them. Not a promise, not commitment, just possibility. The fragile beginning of something that might grow or might die depending on what they chose next. Can we take this slow, he finally said. How slow? And slow enough that I don't feel like I'm erasing Elena. Slow enough that you're sure this isn't just loneliness disguised as love. Slow enough that if it falls apart, we can still survive together. Okay. Okay. Yes, slow is good, slow is smart. She smiled. I'm not very good at slow, but I'll try. That's all I'm asking. They walked back to camp together. The space between them felt different now, charged, aware, like the air before a storm when everything goes electric and strange. Victoria wanted to reach for his hand. Didn't. Wanted to ask 1,000 questions. Didn't. Just walked beside him and tried to be okay with not knowing what came next. That afternoon, Marcus taught her how to make fishing line from plant fibers. It required patience and steady hands and the ability to focus on one tiny task for hours. Victoria was terrible at it. Her fingers were too clumsy. The fibers kept breaking. She wanted to quit after 20 minutes. Take a break, Marcus said. I don't need a break. I need to not be incompetent. You're not incompetent, you're learning. I'm 41 years old. I should know how to do basic things. Why, you never needed to know them before. Give yourself some grace. She threw down the half-made line. I hate this. I hate being bad at things. In my world, I could hire people to do what I couldn't do. Out here, if I can't do it myself, it just doesn't get done. Welcome to how most people live. I don't like it. Nobody does, but you adapt or you die. Those are the options. He picked up her fishing line, examined it. This is actually pretty good for a first try. See how you kept the tension even here? That's hard. It broke 3 times. So you'll do it better next time. That's how learning works. Victoria wanted to argue, wanted to rage against her own inadequacy. But she was tired of fighting, tired of perfectionism, tired of holding herself to impossible standards. Will you show me again? As many times as you need. They worked together until sunset. By the time full darkness fell, Victoria had made 5 feet of passable fishing line. It wasn't pretty, but it was functional. And functional was enough. That night, lying by the fire, she asked the question that had been building all day. Do you think rescue is coming? Marcus didn't answer right away. Honestly, always. I don't know. It's been 2 weeks. Most search and rescue operations get called off after 72 hours unless there's evidence of survivors. And we haven't been able to signal anyone. No planes overhead, no boats near the island. We're off the shipping lanes, too remote. So we might be here forever. We might be here a while. That doesn't answer my question. Because I don't know the answer. Maybe rescue comes tomorrow. Maybe it never comes. We prepare for both possibilities. Keep improving our situation. Keep building. Keep learning. And stay ready to signal if anyone passes by. That's not a plan. That's just surviving. What else is there? Victoria thought about that. About her life before, the 5-year plans, the projections, the absolute certainty that she could force outcomes through preparation and power. None of that worked here. Here, all you could do was adapt and hope. I hate not being in control. I know. How do you stand it? By accepting that I never was in control. Not really. I just thought I was. He added wood to the fire. Elena's cancer taught me that. One day she was healthy. Next day she wasn't. No warning, no way to prevent it, just randomness and bad luck. I could either accept that chaos is part of life or go crazy fighting it. I chose acceptance. How? By focusing on what I could control. I couldn't cure her cancer, but I could hold her hand, make her laugh, take care of Zoe while she was sick, be present for every moment we had left. That was my control, not over outcomes, over myself, over my choices. And that was enough. It had to be. Victoria stared into the flames. I'm not good at acceptance. I'm good at force, at making things happen. I've noticed. Is that a criticism? It's an observation, and honestly, that skill might be what saves us. Someone needs to push, to refuse to accept defeat. That's you. I'm the patient one. You're the driven one. Together we balance out. We make a good team. We do. Something in the way he said it made her look at him. His face was half shadowed by firelight. Impossible to read, but his body language spoke volumes. He'd shifted closer. Not much, just inches, but enough that she could feel his warmth, his presence, the magnetic pull between them that neither of them knew what to do with. Marcus? Yeah, I meant what I said this morning about falling for you. I know. And you meant what you said about feeling something too. I did. So what do we do about it? Nothing. Not yet. We sit with it, let it be what it is, and see what happens. He turned to look at her. Is that okay? It wasn't. Victoria wanted action, wanted decisions, wanted to know where this was going and how it would end. But she was learning that not everything could be rushed or controlled or forced into clarity. Some things had to unfold in their own time, like fires, like storms, like whatever this was between them. Okay, she said. They sat in charged silence. The ocean whispered behind them. The jungle hummed with invisible life. Overhead, the stars wheeled through their ancient patterns indifferent to human drama. Two people sat by a fire on a beach at the edge of the world trying to figure out how to be brave enough to want something without controlling it. Trying to learn that love wasn't a business deal. It was a leap. And leaping required trust. And trust required time. Time they might not have. But time they'd use anyway. The storm came 3 days later, not the gentle tropical rain they'd experienced before. This was something else, something violent and hungry that wanted to tear the island apart. The sky turned green. The wind screamed. The ocean rose up in 30-foot walls that crashed against the rocks like artillery fire. Get to the cave, Marcus shouted over the wind. Now! They ran. Victoria grabbed their water containers. Marcus grabbed the fire kit and their fishing gear. Everything else they left behind. No time, the storm was moving too fast. Already rain was hitting like bullets. Already the wind was strong enough to knock Victoria sideways. They made it to the cave as the worst of it hit. The noise was unbelievable, like the world was ending, like God himself was screaming. Victoria pressed herself against the back wall, shaking. Marcus built a small fire near the entrance, using the dry wood they'd stored there. The flames looked fragile against the fury outside. Will we be okay? Victoria had to yell to be heard. I don't know. That's not comforting. I'm not going to lie to you. This is bad, really bad. The shelter we built on the beach is probably gone. Our water collection system is probably destroyed. We're going to lose a lot of progress. But we'll survive. If the cave holds, if we don't get a storm surge, if lightning doesn't hit us. He looked at her. Too many variables. All we can do is wait. They waited. Hours bled together. The storm raged. Thunder shook the cave. Lightning turned the world white. Rain came sideways, nearly reaching their fire despite the overhang. Victoria had never felt so small, so powerless. Every illusion of control she'd ever had dissolved in the face of nature's indifference. Somewhere around midnight, a sound louder than anything before made them both jump. A crack like the world splitting. Then a crash. Then silence. What was that? Victoria whispered. Marcus crawled to the cave entrance, looked out. Tree came down, big one. Missed the cave by maybe 20 feet. We could have died. We didn't. But we could have, just random chance. Wrong place at the wrong time and we'd be dead. That's always true. Storm just makes it obvious. He came back to the fire. You can't think about it too much or you'll go crazy. You just accept that death is possible and keep living anyway. How are you so calm? Practice and perspective. I've been in worse situations. Worse than this. Afghanistan, roadside bombs, sniper fire, wondering every second if the next step would be your last. That went on for months. He fed the fire. This storm is scary, but it'll pass. The bombs didn't care if you were ready or not. Victoria felt ashamed. Here she was, terrified of weather, while Marcus had survived an actual war. I'm sorry, I'm being weak. You're being human. Fear isn't weakness. Acting despite fear is strength. And you're still here, still fighting. That's strong. I don't feel strong. Nobody does when they're scared. The storm continued. At some point, exhausted by fear, Victoria fell asleep against Marcus's shoulder. She woke to find his arm around her. Protective. Warm. She didn't move. Didn't want to break the moment. Just lay there feeling safe despite everything. When she woke again, the storm was over. Pale dawn light filtered into the cave. Marcus was already up, standing at the entrance, surveying the damage. Victoria joined him. The island looked like a war zone. Trees down everywhere. The beach completely changed. Their shelter, the one they'd spent 2 weeks perfecting, was gone. Just gone. Like it had never existed. The water collection system was destroyed. Even some of the rocks had shifted. "Oh, God," Victoria breathed. "Could be worse. We're alive. The cave is intact. We still have fire." Marcus started gathering the few supplies they'd brought with them. "We rebuild, that's all. Same as before, just starting from a different place." "I can't do this again. I can't start from nothing again." "Yes, you can." "No, I really can't. I'm tired. I'm scared. I'm done." Marcus turned to face her. His expression was hard. Harder than she'd ever seen it. "You don't get to be done. That's not an option. Done means dead. And I didn't keep you alive through a plane crash and 2 weeks of survival and a hurricane just so you could quit now." "I'm not quitting. I'm just..." "You're quitting. You're giving up because it's hard. Because you lost progress. Welcome to life. Sometimes you lose everything and have to start over. You either deal with that or you die. Which is it going to be?" His words hit like slaps. Victoria felt anger rise, but I'd say, "You don't get to talk to me like that." "I absolutely do. Because someone needs to. You're spiraling, falling into despair, and despair out here is lethal." He stepped closer. "You want to fall apart, fine. Take 5 minutes. Cry, scream, whatever you need. But then you pull yourself together and you help me rebuild. Because that's what teammates do. They show up even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." Victoria wanted to argue, wanted to rage at him for not understanding. But he did understand. That was the problem. He understood exactly what she was feeling and refused to let her wallow in it. Because wallowing was the same as dying, just slower. She took her 5 minutes, cried, screamed into her hands, let herself feel the full weight of loss and fear and exhaustion. And then because Marcus was right, because quitting meant dying, because she'd come too far to stop. Now she wiped her eyes and said, "Okay, where do we start?" Marcus's expression softened. Water first. Always water. Then shelter. Then food. Same priorities as before. They worked all day. Victoria's body screamed in protest. Her hands, which had finally stopped hurting, tore open again. Blood mixed with dirt and sweat. She wanted to stop every 5 minutes, didn't. Just kept moving, kept gathering, kept building. Because Marcus was right. Quitting meant dying, and she wasn't ready to die. By sunset, they had a functional shelter. Not as good as the one they'd lost. Smaller. Cruder. But it would keep the rain off them. Marcus managed to catch 2 fish. They ate them half-cooked because the fire kept sputtering in the damp wood. Neither of them complained. They were too tired to care. "We did good today," Marcus said, lying down beside her in the cramped space. "We survived another day, that's all." "That's everything." Victoria was quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry I almost gave up." "Don't apologize, just don't do it again." "I can't promise that. Some days I feel like giving up is the only reasonable response." "Then on those days, you tell me, and I'll carry you until you can walk again. That's what teammates do." She turned to look at him. They were close. Closer than they'd been since her confession. She could see every line in his face, every scar, every hint of the pain he carried but refused to show. "You're a good man, Marcus Thompson." "I'm just a man, doing my best." "Your best is better than most people's." "So is yours, you just don't see it yet." She wanted to kiss him. Wanted it so badly she could barely breathe. But she didn't. Because he'd asked for slow. Because forcing the moment would ruin it. Because some things were worth waiting for even when waiting hurt. Instead, she said, "Tell me about Zoe. What does she like to do?" Marcus smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his whole face. "Everything. She's 7. The world is still magic to her. She likes painting, building forts, making up songs. She's terrible at singing, but she doesn't care. Just belts it out anyway. She sounds like her father. How do you figure? You're terrible at catching crabs, but you keep trying anyway." He laughed. Actually laughed. "Fair point. Yeah, she gets that from me. Elena was naturally talented at everything. Zoe and I are the strivers. We have to work for it. Tell me more. What does she look like? She has Elena's eyes. Dark brown, almost black, and her smile? God, when she smiles, it's like Elena's standing right there. His voice went soft. She has my stubborn streak, though. Once she decides something, that's it. No talking her out of it. Drives my sister crazy. What does she want to be when she grows up? Changes every week. Last month it was astronaut. This month it's a veterinarian who works in space. She doesn't see why she has to choose. Smart kid. She is. Smarter than me. Definitely smarter than I was at her age. He was quiet for a moment. She's going to be so mad at me when I get back. For being gone this long, for scaring her. She'll forgive you. I know, but she shouldn't have to. She already lost her mom. She shouldn't have to worry about losing me too. Victoria heard the guilt in his voice. You didn't choose to crash. You didn't choose to be stranded here. Sometimes bad things just happen, and there's no one to blame. I know that up here. He tapped his head. But here, he pressed his hand to his chest. I feel like I failed her. Like I broke my promise to always come home. You'll keep that promise, just later than planned. What if I don't? What if we die here? It was the first time he'd voiced that possibility out loud. The first crack in his steady facade. Victoria understood what it cost him to admit that fear. Then we die here, together, and Zoe will know her father fought like hell to get back to her. That's worth something. Is it? It's everything. My father is still alive, lives in a mansion in Connecticut. I haven't spoken to him in 5 years because when I needed him to fight for me to choose me over his own comfort, he didn't. He chose easy. Chose himself every time. She shifted closer. Zoe will never doubt that you chose her, even if you don't make it back. She'll know you tried. That's the gift. Marcus closed his eyes. I miss her so much it hurts. I know. No, you don't. You don't have kids. You can't know what it's like to be separated from your child and not know if you'll ever see them again. He was right. She didn't know. But she knew other kinds of pain. You're right. I don't know that specific hurt. But I know what it's like to be alone, to have no one waiting for you. No one who'd miss you if you died. That's its own kind of hell. I'm sorry. I didn't mean... It's okay. You're scared. You're grieving. You get to say things that hurt. She reached out, almost touched his hand, pulled back. But for what it's worth, I'd miss you. If something happened, I'd miss you. Marcus opened his eyes, looked at her, really looked. I'd miss you too. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning, with possibility, with all the things they weren't saying out loud. Victoria felt her heart hammering, felt the pull toward him like gravity, felt every reason to resist and every reason to surrender. Marcus? Yeah. Can I hold your hand just for tonight? I won't ask for more. I need to touch someone, to feel less alone. He didn't answer, just reached out and took her hand. His palm was rough and warm. His fingers laced through hers like they'd been doing it for years. It was the smallest gesture, but it felt like coming home. They fell asleep like that. Hands clasped, bodies close but not touching. Two broken people learning to be whole again in the wreckage of their old lives. Victoria woke to voices. Human voices. Not Marcus, not her own thoughts. Actual people talking somewhere nearby. She sat up fast, heart pounding. Marcus was already awake, finger pressed to his lips, signaling silence. He crawled to the bus shelter entrance, listened. Voices again, closer, speaking Spanish. Stay here, Marcus whispered. No, I'm coming with you. Victoria, we're a team, remember? He looked like he wanted to argue, didn't, just nodded. They crawled out together, moving quiet and careful through the jungle. The voices grew louder. 2 men, maybe 3. Arguing about something, they reached the edge of the beach, stopped behind a fallen tree. Victoria peeked over. 3 men stood beside a small fishing boat pulled up on the sand. Local fishermen by the look of them. One was gesturing angrily. The other 2 looked exhausted. They were speaking rapid Spanish too fast for Victoria to follow with her limited business Spanish. Do you understand them? She whispered. Marcus nodded. They're arguing about whether to stay and fix their boat or abandon it. Engine's dead. They're at least 20 miles from home. One guy wants to wait for rescue. The others want to try and row back. We need to signal them. Carefully, we don't know if they're friendly. They're fishermen, not pirates. You don't know that. Marcus, this might be our only chance. We have to try. He was still hesitating. Victoria made the decision for both of them. Stood up, walked out onto the beach. Hello, do you speak English? All three men jumped, spun around. One grabbed something from the boat, a machete. Victoria's stomach dropped. Maybe Marcus had been right. Maybe this was a mistake. Then the man with the machete lowered it, said something in Spanish. The oldest of the three stepped forward. Oh, English, yes, little bit. You are American. Yes, we crashed. 3 weeks ago. We've been stranded here. Marcus appeared beside her. The men's eyes widened. 2 survivors. Americans. This was probably the strangest thing they'd seen all year. The older man spoke rapidly in Spanish to the others, then back to Victoria. You need help. Yes, we need to get to the nearest port. Can you take us? The man gestured at the boat. Engine is broken. We cannot go anywhere. Marcus stepped forward. I can fix engines. Let me look at it. The men exchanged glances, conferred in Spanish. Finally nodded. Marcus walked over to the boat, started examining the engine. The men watched him work. Victoria stood awkwardly on the sand, unsure what to do with her hands. The older fisherman approached her. You are hurt. No, just dirty, tired. 3 weeks here alone, just the 2 of us. He shook his head. Impressed or horrified, Victoria couldn't tell. You are strong. I'm learning to be. Marcus called out something in Spanish. The men hurried over. More rapid conversation. Gestures, head shaking, then nodding. Marcus worked on the engine for 20 minutes. Victoria watched, feeling useless. Finally, the engine coughed, sputtered, caught. The men cheered. Marcus stood up, wiping oil on his already filthy pants. It'll get you home, but you need a new fuel line. This is temporary. The older man grabbed Marcus's hand, shook it vigorously. Thank you, thank you. Can you take us with you to the nearest town? The men conferred again, longer this time, more heated. Finally, the older man turned back. Yes, we take you, but the boat is small. You must leave everything here. We don't have anything, Victoria said. Just ourselves. Marcus was already gathering their few possessions from the shelter. The knife, the fire kit, the water containers. We can't leave these. We'll need them if what? Victoria interrupted. If they abandon us at sea, Marcus, they're fishermen. They're not going to kill us. You don't know that. I know that this is our best chance. Maybe our only chance. And I'm taking it. She turned to the fishermen. We're ready. Marcus looked like he wanted to argue, but what could he say? Victoria was right. This was their shot at rescue. He stuffed the knife in his pocket, left everything else. Together they walked to the boat. The vessel was maybe 15 feet long, wooden, smelled like fish and diesel fuel. The 3 fishermen helped them climb aboard. There was barely room for 5 people. They'd be sitting practically on top of each other for however long this took. How far to the nearest town? Victoria asked. Puerto Esperanza. Maybe 4 or 5 hours if engine holds. 4 hours. After 3 weeks, 4 hours felt like nothing. Victoria felt tears building. Pushed them down. She wasn't safe yet. Wasn't rescued yet. Just closer. The men pushed the boat into the water. Climbed in. Started the engine. It caught on the second try. They headed out into open ocean, leaving the island behind. Victoria watched it shrink. That small piece of rock and sand and jungle that had been her entire world for 3 weeks. Part of her felt relief. Part of her felt loss. Like leaving behind a piece of herself she'd only just discovered. Marcus sat beside her, silent and tense. His hand found hers under the pretense of steadying himself. She squeezed back. Held on. They'd survived a plane crash. Survived 3 weeks on a deserted island. Survived a hurricane. They could survive 4 hours in a fishing boat with strangers. The engine ran rough but steady. The men passed around water and dried fish, offered some to Victoria and Marcus. They accepted gratefully. The fish was tough and oversalted. Victoria had never tasted anything better. 2 hours into the journey, Marcus leaned close and whispered, "Are you ready? For what? Real life? Going back? Facing everything we left behind? Victoria hadn't let herself think about that. About her company, her apartment, her life as Victoria Sterling CEO. It felt like a costume now, something that belonged to someone else. I don't know. Me neither. What happens when we get back to us? I don't know that either. That's not an answer. It's the only honest one I have. He looked out at the ocean. This thing between us, whatever it is, it grew out of extreme circumstances. Survival mode, life or death. That's not normal. And I don't know if it can exist in the normal world. So we just forget about it. Pretend it didn't happen. I'm not saying that, I'm saying we need to be realistic. You have a company to run. I have a daughter to raise. We live in different worlds, and maybe probably those worlds don't have room for whatever this is. Victoria felt something crack in her chest. You're giving up before we even try. I'm being practical. You're being scared. Of course I'm scared. I'm terrified. Because I already lost one person I loved, and I barely survived it. If I let myself fall for you and then lose you too... He stopped, swallowed hard. I can't do that again. I won't survive it twice. So you'd rather have nothing than risk losing something? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. That's the most cowardly thing I've ever heard. Marcus's jaw tightened. Maybe, but it's also smart, self-preservation. I have to think about Zoe, about giving her a stable father, not someone who's constantly breaking and healing and breaking again. Life isn't stable, you know that better than anyone. Elena proved that. This island proved that. Stability is an illusion we tell ourselves to feel safe. Maybe, but it's a necessary illusion, especially for kids. Victoria wanted to argue, wanted to rage at him for retreating behind logic when what they really needed was courage. But the fishermen were watching them curiously. This wasn't the place. This wasn't the time. So she swallowed her anger and her hurt and said nothing at all. They reached Puerto Esperanza just after sunset, a small fishing village on the coast of Honduras. Concrete buildings painted pastel colors, chickens wandering the streets, children playing soccer with a half-deflated ball. The men helped them out of the boat, pointed them toward a small building that served as the local police station. Marcus thanked them in Spanish. The older fisherman waved it off, said something long and emphatic. Marcus translated. He says we're blessed by God, that most people who crash in the Caribbean die, that we must be here for a reason. What reason? Marcus shrugged. He didn't specify. They walked to the police station. A single officer sat behind a desk watching a small television. He looked up when they entered, his eyes widened. Two Americans in rags, sunburned, filthy, looking like extras from a disaster movie. Marcus did the talking. His Spanish was better than Victoria had realized. The officer made phone calls, asked questions, made more phone calls. Finally, he turned to them and said in heavily accented English, "The American embassy has been contacted. They are sending someone. You will wait here." They waited. Hours passed. Victoria dozed in a plastic chair, too exhausted to stay awake. When she woke, Marcus was gone. Panic seized her. Then he walked back in carrying 2 bottles of Coke and a bag of chips. "Thought you might be hungry." She grabbed the Coke, twisted it open, drank half of it in one go. The sugar and caffeine hit her system like a drug. "Where did you get this?" "Store across the street. I still had my wallet in my pocket, waterproof. Still had $20. "You had money this whole time." "Wasn't much use on the island." "Studs." Victoria laughed. It felt good to laugh. "We could have bought our way off." "From who? The crabs." They sat together drinking Coke and eating chips and feeling surreal. 3 hours ago they were stranded. Now they were in a police station in Honduras drinking soda. The shift was too fast, too jarring. Victoria's brain couldn't process it. "Marcus? Yeah, I don't want this to be over." "What do you mean? Us, this, whatever we were becoming on the island. I don't want to go back to my life and pretend none of this happened." "Victoria, I know what you said on the boat, about being practical, about protecting yourself, and I understand, I do. But I also think you're wrong." "About what?" "About this only being real on the island. About it dying in the real world." She turned to face him. "What I felt for you wasn't just survival instinct. It wasn't trauma bonding. It was real. You're real. The most real person I've ever met. And I don't want to lose that. Marcus looked at her. His eyes were tired. What do you want me to say? Say you'll try. Say you'll give us a chance. Say you won't just walk away the second we get home. I can't promise that. Why not? Because I don't know what I'm feeling. I don't know if this is real or just circumstance, and I can't risk hurting you by pretending I'm sure when I'm not. Then be unsure, be confused. Be whatever you are, just don't shut me out. I'm trying to protect you. I don't need protection. I need honesty. Before Marcus could respond, the door opened. A woman in a suit walked in. American, embassy official. Victoria Sterling, Marcus Thompson. They stood, confirmed their identities. The woman's expression shifted to relief. Thank God, your families have been worried sick. We've had search teams looking for 3 weeks. How did you survive? We're resourceful, Victoria said. The woman started asking questions. Details about the crash, the pilot's name, the plane's tail number, where they'd been, how they'd gotten to Puerto Esperanza. Victoria answered mechanically, her mind elsewhere. Marcus stood beside her, close but not touching, and she could feel the distance opening between them already, the real world pulling them apart before they'd even left Honduras. After an hour of questions, the woman said, "We have a car waiting. It'll take you to Tegucigalpa. There's a flight to Miami tomorrow morning. We've contacted your families. They'll meet you at the airport." Tomorrow, Victoria felt panic rise. Not tonight. The airport here is too small. No international flights. Tegucigalpa is our only option. It's a 3-hour drive. We'll leave within the hour. Victoria nodded, felt numb. Everything was happening too fast. 3 weeks on the island had moved slow as honey. Now rescue was moving at lightning speed and she couldn't keep up. They walked out to the car, a clean black sedan with diplomatic plates. The woman opened the back door. Marcus climbed in. Victoria hesitated. Once she got in that car, the island was over. This thing with Marcus was over. Her old life would come rushing back like a tide and drown everything new she'd discovered. "Ms. Sterling," the woman prompted. Victoria got in the car. They drove through the night, past small villages, past stretches of jungle that looked like the island, past her old life and toward her new one. Except it wasn't new. It was the same life she'd left, the same company, the same empty apartment, the same loneliness disguised as success. The only thing different was her. And maybe that would be enough. Maybe the person she'd become on the island could survive in the real world. Maybe she was strong enough now to build a life that actually mattered. Or maybe she'd revert, slip back into old patterns because they were easy and familiar and safe. Maybe 3 weeks wasn't enough to rewire 41 years of programming. Maybe Marcus was right to be scared. Maybe this thing between them would die the second they touched down in Miami. She looked over at him. He was staring out the window, face unreadable. She wanted to reach for his hand. Didn't. The space between them felt wider than the ocean, wider than the island, wider than anything they'd crossed together. And she didn't know how to bridge it, didn't know if it could be bridged at all. "Marcus," she whispered. He turned. "Yeah. I need to know right now. Are we over? Is this the end?" He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, he said, "I don't know. Ask me again in Miami." It wasn't the answer she wanted, but it was honest. And honesty was all they had left. So she nodded, turned to her own window, watched Honduras roll past in the darkness, and tried not to think about how much it felt like leaving home. They landed in Miami at 11 a.m. The moment the plane touched down, Victoria's phone buzzed to life in her pocket. The embassy had returned it to her in Tegucigalpa. 47 missed calls, 216 emails, 31 text messages, her assistant, her board members, her lawyers, everyone wanting to know where she'd been, if she was alive, when she'd be back at work. Marcus's phone did the same. He looked at the screen and his whole face changed. Upend. "Zoe," he said. Just that. Just her name. Like a prayer. "Is she here? Text from my sister. They're waiting at arrivals." He stood the second the seatbelt sign turned off, grabbed his bag. The embassy had given them each a small duffel with clean clothes and toiletries. Everything else they owned was at the bottom of the Caribbean or scattered across that island. "I have to go." "I know." He looked at her, started to say something, stopped. "Victoria, go to your daughter. We'll talk later." Will we? You said to ask you in Miami. I'm asking. Marcus ran his hand through his hair, clean now, cut yesterday by a barber in Tegucigalpa who'd refused payment when he heard their story. He looked like a different person without 3 weeks of grime and desperation. More like the man he'd been before the crash. Less like the man she'd fallen for on the island. I don't know what to tell you, he finally said. I meant what I said on the boat. I need time, space to figure out what's real and what was just survival. How much time? I don't know that either. So I'm just supposed to wait. Put my life on hold while you decide if I'm worth the risk. That's not fair. None of this is fair. Fair would be you being brave enough to admit you feel something. Fair would be you fighting for this instead of running away. People were staring, other passengers trying to get past them in the aisle. Marcus lowered his voice. I'm not running. I'm being responsible. I have a 7-year-old who needs her father. That has to come first. I'm not asking you to choose between us. I'm asking you to make room for both. I don't know if I can. The words hit like a punch. Victoria felt something inside her chest crack clean through. Then I guess you've already decided. Victoria, go. Your daughter's waiting. She pushed past him, walked off the plane without looking back. Her legs were shaking, her eyes burned. But she didn't cry. Wouldn't cry. Not here. Not where people could see. She'd spent 3 weeks learning to be vulnerable on that island. She wasn't about to perform it in an airport terminal. Her assistant was waiting at arrivals, professional, efficient, holding a sign with Victoria's name like she was a visiting dignitary instead of a boss who'd been presumed dead. Ms. Sterling, welcome back. The car is waiting. I've cleared your schedule for the rest of the day. The board wants to meet tomorrow morning at 9, and there's... Stop. The assistant stopped, blinked. Victoria had never interrupted her before, never raised her voice, never showed anything but perfect control. I need 24 hours, Victoria said. No calls, no emails, no meetings. 24 hours of silence. Can you do that? But the board will wait. Tell them I'm alive. Tell them I'll see them when I'm ready. That's all. The assistant's mouth opened, closed. Of course, whatever you need. They drove to Victoria's penthouse in Brickell, 43rd floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay, 3,000 square feet of marble and chrome and cold, perfect emptiness. The assistant tried to follow her inside. Victoria stopped her at the door. 24 hours, starting now. She closed the door, locked it, stood in her foyer and felt nothing. This place that had cost $8 million felt less like home than a palm frond shelter on a beach. The silence was oppressive. Wrong. On the island there'd been ocean sounds, jungle sounds. Marcus's breathing beside her at night. Here there was just air conditioning and her own heartbeat. She walked to the bathroom, looked in the mirror. A stranger stared back. Sunburned, lean, hair bleached almost white from salt and sun. Scars on her hands and arms. She looked Walt. Dangerous. Alive? Nothing like the polished CEO who'd be boarded that plane 3 weeks ago. Victoria turned on the shower, stood under water hot enough to hurt, watched 3 weeks of island wash down the drain. When she finally stepped out, her skin was pink and raw, and she still didn't feel clean. Because the dirt was gone, but everything else remained. The grief, the confusion, the feeling that she'd found something real and then lost it before she could even name it. She put on clean clothes, designer sweats that cost more than Marcus probably made in a week. Poured herself a glass of wine from a bottle that cost $600. It tasted like nothing. She dumped it down the sink. Her phone kept buzzing. She turned it off, walked to the window, looked out at Miami spread below her. Millions of people living millions of lives. And somewhere down there, Marcus was holding his daughter, choosing his old life over whatever they might have built together. And she couldn't even blame him, because he was right to choose Zoe, right to be careful, right to protect himself from more loss. But being right didn't stop it from hurting. Victoria slept 14 hours, woke to pounding on her door. She checked the peephole. Her assistant, still professional, now holding coffee and pastries like offerings to an unpredictable god. I know you said 24 hours, the woman called through the door, but it's been 36 and the board is threatening to remove you for abandonment. I need to know what you want me to tell them. Victoria opened the door. Tell them I'll be there in an hour. And that if anyone tries to remove me, I'll destroy them so completely they'll wish they'd died in that plane crash instead of me. The assistant's eyes widened. Should I say it exactly like that? Word for word. The meeting was brutal. 5 board members sitting around a mahogany table looking at her like she'd personally inconvenienced them by almost dying. They wanted explanations, timelines, assurances that this wouldn't affect the Tokyo deal or the merger with Hanover Shipping or the quarterly earnings report. Victoria let them talk, watched their mouths move, heard their words, felt nothing. These people had been her world for 20 years. Now they felt like strangers, like actors in a play she no longer wanted to watch. Ms. Sterling. The chairman was staring at her. Did you hear the question? No. I asked when you plan to resume full duties. The company needs stability, leadership. We've been rudderless for 3 weeks. Victoria stood up. I'm taking a leave of absence. Silence. 5 faces frozen in identical expressions of shock. Excuse me, the chairman finally said. You heard me? 6 months, effective immediately. Promote Jenkins to interim CEO. She's been ready for years. This is her chance. You can't just leave. Not now, not with everything in flux. I absolutely can. Check the bylaws. I have 3 months of emergency leave available. I'm taking 6. Sue me if you don't like it. Victoria, be reasonable. I spent 3 weeks on a deserted island learning to be unreasonable, learning that control is an illusion, and all of this. She gestured at the boardroom, the building. The empire she'd built doesn't actually matter. Not the way I thought it did. So I'm taking 6 months to figure out what does matter. And if you don't like it, fire me. She walked out. Didn't look back. Heard them shouting after her. Didn't care. Got in the elevator. Rode down 43 floors. Walked out into Miami sunshine and felt lighter than she had in 20 years. Her phone rang. Marcus. She stared at it for 3 rings, 4, 5, answered on the 6th. Hello. It's me. His voice was rough, tired. Can we talk? I thought you needed time. I do, but I also owe you an explanation. Can I come over? Well, when? Now, if that's okay. Victoria looked around. She was standing on a sidewalk in downtown Miami wearing a Chanel suit and Louboutin heels. People rushed past her. No one looked twice. In the real world, she was invisible. On the island, she'd been essential. Yes, come over. He arrived an hour later, wearing jeans and a t-shirt, looking like every other exhausted single father in America. Nothing special. Everything that mattered. Victoria opened the door. They stood there looking at each other across the threshold. 3 feet of space that felt like 3 miles. Can I come in? Marcus asked. She stepped aside. He walked in, looked around at her penthouse, the art, the furniture, the view. Nice place. It's empty. Yeah, I noticed that too. They sat on opposite ends of her white couch. The distance felt deliberate, careful, like they were afraid of what might happen if they got too close. Victoria waited for him to talk, gave him the space to find his words. I saw Zoe yesterday, he finally said. Held her, let her cry all over me. She was so angry, kept hitting my chest and yelling that I promised to come home, that I broke my promise. What did you say? That I was sorry, that I tried, that sometimes bad things happen and there's nothing you can do but survive them and come home when you can. He rubbed his face on Bassett. She didn't understand. How could she? She's 7. All she knows is I left and didn't come back for 3 weeks. In her world, that's forever. She'll forgive you. She already has. Kids are better at forgiveness than adults. It's the forgetting that'll take time. And he looked at Victoria. I put her to bed last night, read her 3 stories, lay with her until she fell asleep, and the whole time I kept thinking about you, about the island, about how wrong I was on that boat. Victoria's heart stuttered. What do you mean? I said I didn't know if what we had was real, that it might die in the normal world, but lying there with my daughter in my old bed in my old life, all I could think about was you. How you'd look at things that scared you and do them anyway. How you failed and tried again without giving up. How you made me laugh even when everything was terrible. He leaned forward. That's not circumstance. That's not survival mode. That's just you. And I was an idiot to think geography would change it. So, what are you saying? I'm saying I want to try. I want to figure out if this thing between us can work in the real world. I want to introduce you to Zoe and see if you panic. I want to have dinner with you somewhere that isn't a beach. I want to argue about stupid things that don't involve survival. I want all of it. If you'll give me a chance. Victoria felt tears building. You hurt me. On the boat. At the airport. You made me feel like I was something you could just walk away from. I know. And I'm sorry. I was scared. I am scared. Terrified, actually. Because the last woman I loved died and it nearly destroyed me. And if I let myself love you and something happens, then something happens and we deal with it together. That's the whole point. You don't get guarantees, you just get each other. And you choose each other every day until you can't anymore. Marcus moved closer, took her hand. His fingers laced through hers exactly like they had on the island. I'm a mess. I have a kid. I work construction. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment in Fort Lauderdale. I'm nothing like the men you usually date. I don't usually date. And I don't want someone like the men I knew before. I want you. Messy and scared and brave enough to try anyway. What about your company, your life, this... He gestured at the penthouse. Isn't exactly compatible with my world. I quit. You what? Not quit exactly. Took a leave, 6 months. To figure out what actually matters. Turns out, empires are pretty meaningless when you're falling out of the sky. Marcus stared at her. You're serious. Completely. I spent 20 years building something I thought would make me happy. It didn't. So I'm trying something else, something that scares me more than any board meeting or business deal ever did. What's that? Being vulnerable, being open, choosing connection over control, choosing you. Marcus pulled her close, kissed her. It was nothing like the desperate survival they'd lived on the island. This was softer, slower, a promise instead of a panic. Victoria kissed him back, let herself fall into it, let herself want without controlling, let herself be wanted without walls. When they finally pulled apart, Marcus said, I need to warn you. Zoe is the most important thing in my life. She'll always come first. If you can't handle that, I can handle it. I want to try. I've never been around kids. I'll probably be terrible at it. But I want to learn. I want to meet her. I want to be part of your world. If you'll let me. She's a lot. Loud, messy, asks a million questions, makes up songs about everything. You might hate it. I might love it. You really think you can do this? Date a single dad deal with school pickups and playdates and Disney movies on repeat? I survived 3 weeks on a deserted island with you. I think I can survive a 7-year-old. Marcus laughed. You say that now. They spent the afternoon talking, not about survival or rescue or what came next, just about small things, favorite movies, worst jobs, embarrassing moments. The kind of getting to know you conversations most couples had on first dates. They were doing it backward, fell for each other first, now learning the details. But somehow that felt right. They'd seen each other at their worst. Everything else was just filling in the gaps. Around 5, Marcus's phone buzzed. He checked it. My sister wants to know when I'm picking up Zoe. You should go. Come with me. What? Come meet her. I know it's fast. I know it's scary, but I don't want to waste time pretending this is casual when it's not. You want in my life? This is my life, Zoe. Pizza on Fridays, parks on Saturdays. All of it. Come see if you can handle it. Victoria's first instinct was to say no, to slow down, to ease into this, but slow was the old Victoria, the one who controlled everything. The new Victoria, the one born on that island, said, okay, let's go. They drove to Fort Lauderdale in Marcus's truck. A 10-year-old Ford with a crack in the windshield and Zoe's car seat in the back. It smelled like French fries and childhood. Nothing like Victoria's Tesla that still had the new car smell after 2 years. She liked Marcus's truck better. His sister's house was small, working class, kids' bikes in the yard, toys on the porch. The door opened before they reached it. A woman who looked like a female version of Marcus stood there holding a small girl with dark eyes and Marcus's stubborn chin. Daddy! Zoe launched herself at him. Marcus caught her, held her like she was the most precious thing in the world. Because she was, Victoria stood awkwardly by the truck, unsure what to do with her hands. Marcus's sister approached. You must be Victoria. I'm Sarah. I'd shake your hand, but I don't actually believe you're real. My brother's been talking about you nonstop for 2 days. Has he? Oh yeah, Victoria this, Victoria that. Victoria learned to catch crabs. I was starting to think he'd hallucinated you. Marcus set Zoe down. Zoe, this is Victoria. She's the friend I told you about. The one who was on the island with me. Zoe stared at Victoria with the unblinking intensity only children possess. Did you really crash in an airplane? I did. Were you scared? Terrified? Did you cry, Wiki? Many times. Daddy said you learned to make fire with rocks. Can you show me? Victoria looked at Marcus. He shrugged. Up to you. I don't have rocks here. We have rocks in the backyard, Zoe said. Come on. She grabbed Victoria's hand, pulled her toward the odd back of the house. Just like that. No hesitation, no fear. The absolute confidence of a child who'd been told someone was safe and believed it. Victoria let herself be pulled, sat in the grass in her Chanel suit while a 7-year-old brought her rocks and demanded fire tricks. Marcus and Sarah watched from the porch. You really like her? Sarah asked quietly. I really do. Even though she's rich and you're not, even though she's from a completely different world. None of that matters. What matters is she sees me, the real me, and I see her, and we make each other better. That's either very romantic or very naive. Probably both. In the backyard, Victoria was explaining to Zoe why you needed specific types of rocks to make sparks. See, you need flint or chert or quartzite. These are just regular stones. They won't work. But Daddy said you made fire. We got lucky, found the right rocks, but it takes practice and patience and lots of failing before you succeed. I'm good at failing, Zoe said seriously. My teacher says I fail at spelling, but I'm trying. Failing means you're learning. That's good. That's what Daddy says too. They spent 20 minutes searching for the right rocks. Didn't find any. But Zoe didn't seem to care. She just kept talking. About school, about her best friend Emma who moved away, about how she wanted a dog but Daddy said apartments don't allow them, about everything and nothing with the breathless enthusiasm of someone who found the world endlessly fascinating. Victoria listened, asked questions, felt something unfamiliar blooming in her chest. This was Marcus's world, messy and loud and full of the kind of chaos no boardroom had ever contained. And she didn't hate it, didn't feel trapped or overwhelmed. She felt curious, engaged, like maybe she could learn to belong here. When they left 2 hours later, Zoe hugged Victoria goodbye. Actually hugged her, wrapped small arms around Victoria's waist and squeezed. Will you come back? Victoria looked at Marcus. He was smiling. Would you like me to? Yes, you're fun and you listen when I talk. Most grown-ups just pretend. I'll come back, I promise. They drove home in comfortable silence. Marcus reached over, took her hand. Thank you. For what? For trying, for meeting Zoe, for not running when you saw what my actual life looks like. Your actual life is beautiful. It's chaotic. Same thing. They pulled up to Victoria's building. The doorman's eyebrows shot up when he saw Marcus's truck, probably the first vehicle under $50,000 to ever use the valet service. Victoria didn't care. Let them judge, let them talk. She was done living for other people's approval. Come up, she said. You sure? Completely. They rode the elevator to the 43rd floor, walked into her penthouse that suddenly felt less empty. Marcus pulled her close, kissed her properly, deep and slow and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, he said, I should go. Zoe has school tomorrow. Early pickup. Stay. Victoria. Just tonight. Just sleep. I don't want to wake up alone. Not after finally finding someone who makes me want to wake up at all. Marcus studied her face. Whatever he saw there made him nod. Okay, tonight. They got ready for bed. Brushed teeth side by side like they'd done it 1,000 times. Changed into sleep clothes. Climbed into Victoria's California King that had never held another person. They lay there in the darkness, Victoria's head on Marcus's chest, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. Marcus, yeah, I'm scared. Of what? That this won't last, that I'll mess it up, that I'm not capable of being what you need. You're already what I need. You just have to show up, that's all. No performance, no perfection, just you. What if just me isn't enough? It's more than enough, trust me. He kissed the top of her head. Now sleep. Tomorrow's going to be complicated. We should rest while we can. Victoria closed her eyes, let herself relax into him. Let herself trust that morning would come and he'd still be there. Let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, love built on a deserted island could survive in the real world. Because love wasn't about the location. It was about the choice. And every day, every moment, they'd choose each other. Choose courage over fear. Choose connection over control. Choose to keep trying even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. 3 months later, Victoria stood on a beach in Fort Lauderdale watching Marcus teach Zoe how to build a proper shelter from driftwood and palm fronds. The same beach where they'd been brought ashore by the Coast Guard after the fishermen called for help. The same beach where their new life had begun. "You're doing it wrong," Zoe informed her father. "The fronds go this way. I survived 3 weeks on an island. I think I know how fronds go." "Then why is it falling down?" Marcus looked at his collapsing shelter. "Technical difficulties." Victoria laughed, joined them, helped fix what Marcus had built wrong. Together, the three of them constructed something that would hold, something that would last. Not forever. Nothing lasted forever, but long enough to matter. Long enough to be real. When they finished, Zoe said, "Can we send it into the ocean like a boat?" "Why would we do that?" Marcus asked. "Because Daddy said when bad things happen, you have to say goodbye to them. Let them go so new things can come. And you guys had bad things happen on the island. So maybe we should say goodbye to them and let new things come instead." Victoria and Marcus exchanged glances. "When did you get so wise?" Victoria asked. "I was born this way," Zoe said with absolute 7-year-old confidence. They carried the driftwood shelter to the water, set it floating, watched it drift out into the Atlantic, a goodbye to survival mode, to fear to the people they'd been before the crash, and a hello to everything that came after. To courage, to love, to choosing each other even when it was terrifying, especially when it was terrifying. Marcus took Victoria's hand. Zoe took the other. They stood there watching the shelter disappear into the horizon. 3 people who'd learned that the scariest question wasn't, "Must I marry you to survive?" It was, "Must I open my heart knowing it might break?" And the answer was always yes. Because hearts were made to break and heal and break again. That was living. That was love. That was the only thing worth doing in this brief, beautiful, terrifying life. The shelter vanished from sight. They turned away from the ocean and walked back toward the shore, toward whatever came next. Together.